Hello everybody, and welcome to my lecture on triquetras. I am so excited to have you here. I'm so excited to talk about this. The way that I want you to view this is not as a one-time watch through and you're just going to understand it. I want you to watch this with two things in your hand. One, a yo-yo, and two, a notebook, whatever kind of notebook that you prefer. Whether it's an iPad with a pencil or a Microsoft Surface with whatever their stylus is called, or pen and paper, or just a document with a computer, however you like to take notes, take them, record them, take screenshots and pictures, and also tell your friends about this because this is something that I'm really, really excited to be sharing, and I thank you so much for doing whatever you've done to get access to it. I thank you so much for doing that and taking that action, because this is the stuff that really excites me. This is the stuff that is going to make you and just yo-yoing as a whole better, because this is theory that yo-yoers don't know yet, but they will. And this is my sort of gift back to the yo-yo community for all that it's given me, is taking stuff from poi and from juggling and from improv and from engineering and combining it into one little thing and then giving it to you guys for your viewing pleasure. So what a triquetra is, before I start on all of the complicated stuff we're going to get into, is this is what it looks like. Let me just show it to you. So here's a triquetra. And we can go from the triquetra to an around the world, and we can take that around the world and spin it over here and do a triquetra over there, and then do an around the world here, and then a triquetra there, and then we can switch hands for the triquetra, and we can be doing this, and we can switch hands again. And now we're basically doing black hops with triquetras. Boop, 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 boo. So now we have a reverse triquetra, and now we have a triquetra showing up right there, but just one pedal of it. And so that's what a triquetra looks like. That's all the stuff that you can do with a triquetra. And the reason that triquetras are important is because they are the most basic of the anti-spin flowers. And a lot of my tricks rely on anti-spin flowers. That's an extension versus a 4-pedal anti-spin flower, but that's a little bit complicated. What a triquetra is a 3-pedal anti-spin flower. That's what it is. So what is a pedal? A pedal is the point of the triquetra. You'll notice that my hand here, 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 here. It's hitting 3 points. And the yo-yo is making 3 pedals, 3 distinct pedals. There's one, and there's one, and there's one, and there's one, and there's one. And so that's what makes it, that's the tri in triquetra, is TRI, as in tri-tip steak, not like trying hard. But I do want you all to try a triquetra. I'm going to stop it with these puns because I'll just keep going. So that's what a triquetra looks like. That's kind of what the word means. But before I get into triquetras, I want to give you a little bit of notation. And by a little bit, I mean a bit. This is notation that I have developed out of vector mechanics in engineering school. And vector mechanics is dynamics and statics. The science and engineering behind moving things, and the science and engineering behind not moving things, which is statics. Dynamics is moving things. So when engineers talk about moving objects, they use the basic notation that I'm about to tell you about, and the reason is because it's super, super simple, and it's always true. And it doesn't matter the orientation of the objects that it's happening to, it's just always true for all frames of reference, and you can just keep moving it, and it doesn't matter how you're looking at the object, all of this stays true as long as you have defined your axis system properly. That's a fact that they drill into your brain the second year of engineering school. And now I'm drilling it into your brain because if it works for engineers, it'll work for us. And one more thing about this system is it's very, very efficient. If you've ever been teaching somebody and you go, oh yeah, you're going to go around this way, and the person you're teaching is left-handed, or you're teaching to a YouTube tutorial where the video gets flipped between either your phone or uploading to YouTube, or just the person's screen is mirrored or something like that, and then the direction that they're watching it is this way, but they are looking at it this way, and so now that is a flip. So there's all these different changes. You can't really ever tell what direction is what. Plus, sometimes people are left-handed, and that causes its own confusion that you're like, okay, you're gonna go this way, but if you're left-handed, then you're gonna have the string over here, so instead of being clockwise, now it's counterclockwise. And so that whole thing can all get eliminated with this system that I'm about to tell you about. And so it might seem confusing or arbitrary at first. It's not. Nothing about it is arbitrary. It's all been chosen specifically. I've been working on this for years now. So it'll work. It'll work for you. And here's what it is. The basic of it is that the x-axis is here. The y-axis is here, and the z-axis is here. The positive x-axis changes. The positive y and z-axis never change. Positive y-axis is always forward for all people. The positive z-axis is always upward for all people. If you are a 1A player, the positive x-axis is your throw hand. It's what we commonly call the throw hand. If you are a 1A player, the negative x-axis is your non-throw hand side. It's the direction of your non-throw hand. I'm pointing in the negative x direction. This point right here, the center of all of these axes, is 0. It has nothing. But it's right here. That's where everything can rotate around. Like if I start rotating here, and I rotate there, and I rotate there, all of these rotations are happening around that center point. That center point isn't really moving. If you look at all of these rotations that are happening, a lot of the rotations in yo-yoing happen around that point. So that's sort of your origin. Now, what I was saying about the positive x-axis changing, if I am a left-handed yo-yoer and my throw hand is my left hand, then that is my positive x-axis. And that is my negative x-axis. Notice I'm not saying my right hand or my left hand. Now I'm just saying that's my positive x-axis, that's my negative x-axis. Whichever hand is your preferred hand, whichever is your dominant hand, if you want to do it that way, that can be your positive x-axis. It's just whichever hand the yo-yo is in. Now if you're a 3A player, it's your dominant hand. Your dominant hand side is your positive x-axis. Just choose whichever hand you're dominant in, and that's what it will be if you're a 3A player. But for us, for our purposes, 1A players, also 2A players, it's the same deal. It's whichever one's your dominant hand. But for 1A players and 5A players and 4A players, it's whichever hand the yo-yo is in, whichever hand is your throw hand. That is the positive side. One other thing, throw hand and non-throw hand, to me, this is really the only thing that's arbitrary. That to me is very cumbersome. I just prefer A hand and B hand. So A and B instead of throw hand and non-throw hand, because they're just too long of words and they get used too often. So I might say instead of throw and non-throw, A and B. A and B. Now, there's one last thing that you have to understand. Well, there's more, but there's one more thing that you have to understand, which is the rotations about these axes. So you'll notice that right here, my arms are spinning around an axis, right? They're spinning around the x-axis because that is the center of their rotation. Right now, I'm spinning about the z-axis. The z-axis going up and down through my body, that is the center of my rotation. If you look at the yo-yo right now, I just threw it around the y-axis because the y-axis goes here and it goes backwards that way. So now it's spinning around the y-axis. So, and that doesn't matter if it's over here or over here, it's still around the y-axis, it's spinning. So what we can do to define the difference between this spin and this spin, which we'd usually commonly say, this is clockwise and this is counterclockwise. Instead of saying clockwise and counterclockwise, because that starts to break down a little bit if you're going like up here or if you're going here, then like, is that clockwise? I guess it's clockwise, but only if I'm facing this way. There's not really a clock on the wall of your right side wise or clock on the roof wise. Like, that starts to break down. Plus, it's the left-handed and right-handedness starts to mess with it even more, because a trapeze is a clockwise if you're right-handed, but if you're left-handed, now it's counterclockwise, and so now that's a problem that has to get solved. So instead of clockwise and counterclockwise, we're going to use positive and negative spins. So what a spin is any object that's rotating about an axis. In order to I just tripped over my words there. In order to determine if it's a positive or a negative axis, or a positive or a negative rotation, and about which axis it's rotating, what you're going to do is you're going to take the non-throw hand, you're going to curl the fingers in the direction of the travel of the object. So you can see it's rotating that way, so my fingers are going to curl this way. And now my thumb is pointing in the negative y direction. So this is going to be a negative y spin. If we start rotating this way, then I curl my fingers in the direction of rotation, then my thumb is now pointing in the positive y direction. So what that means is that if I throw this way, well, I just did a positive y throw. So instead of a forward throw or a front throw or a straight throw or whatever you call that, and instead of a breakaway or a opposite straight throw or a side style throw, you can call this throw a negative y throw. And you can call this throw a positive y throw. And you can call this spin a positive y spin. And you can call this spin a negative y spin. And the key to understanding all of that is the non-throw hand rule, which is just you take your fingers, you rotate them, you curl them in the direction of travel of the object that's spinning, and you look at your thumb and the axis that it's pointing along. Right now, it is a negative y spin, and right now, it is a positive y spin. Positive y spin right there. So, now that you know that, you can also take that and do it for z-axis. So right now, it's spinning this way, right? Curl my fingers in that direction. That's a negative z spin. If I reverse that, then now I curl my fingers in the direction of travel of the object that's rotating, and we have a positive z spin. And we can also do that along the x-axis. This is a positive x spin and a negative x spin. Of course, if I am left-handed and this is my throw hand, then now my positive x is in that direction, and so now it's just the opposite, that this is my non-throw hand, that is a negative x spin, and this is a positive x spin. That should cover everything, yes. Now, another thing is that will just work. You don't really have to think about that any more than everything I've just told you. Those are just laws, and they will apply to everything, and they solve all of the problems I described. I guarantee it. As a guy with a degree in engineering, I guarantee that works. I've done enough problems where I have to think about axes to tell you it does work. And it'll work for you, and it'll fix all those issues. So I'm going to use all of that notation to define and describe this triquetra as I go through it. There are two more things I have to cover in notation. Just two more, and those are the law of matched spins, as well as defining different kinds of spins. So you'll notice that when I do a triquetra, three things are spinning all at once. There's the yo-yo that is spinning around my hand. There is the yo-yo that is spinning around its own hub. And then there's the hand that is spinning around my shoulder. It's actually kind of spinning around the origin, but in this case it is the shoulder. So those are the centers of your rotation. So you're going to have a hub spin, which is the yo-yo spinning around its own hub. We're just defining all the spins as their centers of rotation. So the yo-yo spinning around its own hub is hub spin. So this has a negative y hub spin because we just threw a breakaway. So it has a negative y hub spin. But the hub spin can be different than what we'll call the hand spin. We'll call it the hand spin because the hand is the center of this rotation. We're just making a circle, right? And the center of that circle is my hand. So we can have a negative y hand spin, or we could have a positive y hand spin, along with a negative y hub spin, because that hasn't changed. I still have to do a reverse bind. I'll get into positive and negative binds in a different video, but I still have to do a reverse bind to bring it up, because you have to do a reverse bind for a negative y spin. You just have to. Same with a positive y spin. So now we have a positive y spin with a positive, because everything's spinning this way, with a positive y hand spin. So positive y hub spin, positive y hand spin, and now negative y hand spin with a positive y hub spin. So now there's one more spin, which is your shoulder spin. So let's go positive and positive, and now we can start to create a triquetra. So here's a triquetra, and to do that we have to have, look at what my hand is doing. My hand is spinning in this direction, right? I'm curling my fingers in the direction that my hand is spinning around my shoulder, and that means it's a negative y shoulder spin. And it doesn't matter what everything else is doing, I just know that my shoulder spin is negative y. So once I get into actually what the triquetra is and finishing teaching you that, I'll go through everything that's happening, the hub, hand, and shoulder spin all at once. But before I do that, I want to tell you about the law of matched spins. The law of matched spins, you may have noticed that some tricks, like if you're learning leg wrap trap, for example, that's a common trick where this would come up in. If you're doing that and you have a little bit of spin in your yo-yo, and you've done it from a normal throw, which is a positive Y throw, you've done it from a normal front style throw, and now you start rotating it this way, and then you try to do your leg wrap trap, you're gonna have, whoa, I think I just got caught on my pants there. You try to do a leg wrap trap, then you're going to have, see how it went off axis? It's not just because it hit the floor a second ago, it's partly because of the law of matched spins, which states that the hand spin and hub spin, the product of those has to be positive. So I can do a negative hub spin with a negative hand spin around any axis, but in this case around the y-axis. But I can't do a positive hand spin with a negative hub spin, because that creates an unstable system where if I start to do this stuff, it's gonna go all wacky. But if I have done a positive hand spin, or a positive hub spin, and I maintain a positive hand spin, well now I can do a lot of this stuff just fine. It started to go off axis, but it's still around. Let me do it with more string. And you can see I have a lot more control and everything is a lot more stable when I've matched my two spins. I did some extra stuff at the end, but all of the spinning was happening. You can see they're still matched. The yo-yo was still always going this way. The hand spin, it turned into leg spin. The hand spin was always going that way, and the hub spin was still always going that way. And so that's a positive hand spin with a positive hub spin. Positive times positive is always positive. If I do a negative hand spin, then a negative times the positive hub spin is negative. And so now we have an unstable system. If I start to do leg stuff, and I don't catch on my pocket again, I think I'm catching on my mic pack actually, but if I start to do this, it's going to be an unstable system. It's going to go off axis and it's going to spin out really, really quickly because we've mixed negative and positive. That's never, never good. So we can do a negative Y throw. We have negative Y hub spin and negative Y hand spin, but if we reverse that, now we have an unstable system, so we can re-reverse it, and now we have a stable system again, and we can do our tricks a lot more effectively. So that is just a little bit about the law of matched spins. Make sure that your hand spin matches, or sorry, that the hand spin, make sure that the product of your hand spin and your hub spin are matched. Oh dear. I should know my own laws if I'm creating them. I'll say it one last time. Make sure that the product of your hand spin and your hub spin are positive and you will always be good. That might feel too technical, but eventually you'll just get a feel for it and you'll know, oh, I threw it this way, I have to keep the yo-yo spinning in that direction, and now I'm creating good stuff. All of this is legal. Uh-oh, at some point I reversed it, which, again, it's something you'll realize is okay as long as you're not doing it too much. Because a combo can handle a little bit of breaking the law of matched spins, but it's just as long as it isn't for too long and it doesn't end up spinning out. Because you can control a negative matched, an unmatched spin. You can control that system. It just takes a lot more work, and you can't do it for very long before it starts to spin out. So we can do this stuff, and all is well. Ah, see right there, that's where I switched. That was a direction change, and now we're back to our normal stable system. So that's interesting. Fun stuff. You're learning with me. Now, that is the law of matched spins. Let's finally get into triquetras and how to do them. And before I start, I want to give credit where credit is due, and a lot of credit is due to my friend Drex. He runs Drex Factor Poi, a very, very good project, a very good Patreon, and he has a YouTube channel that you should subscribe to. He has like 82,000 subscribers. He is a very, very good flow arts teacher. He specializes in poi, and he has so many tutorials that I highly recommend you watch. What I'm about to teach you, I basically got from his video on triquetras. So go watch his video on triquetras. He has way better diagrams than I have the means to create, and he does a very good job of explaining. So good that I wanted to borrow what he taught and present it to you, the yo-yo community, because you might not see his video otherwise. But definitely go watch his video. And I feel that I've added enough to the concepts that he presented that it's going to be more useful for you as yo-yoers, which is all of this hand versus hub spin stuff and making sure that your directions are matched and all of your spins are proper, because that stuff is less important in poi, but very important to us. So what you're going to do is a triquetra. That simple. No. So you're going to be spinning negative Y with your A hand. Then you're going to drag across to your negative side, and then you're going to be spinning over there. Once again, negative Y. Now you're going to dip down and go back across. So it's a drag, dip down, and across. Now, I'm going to break these all down. So one thing is kill your yo-yo, because you don't need your yo-yo to be spinning for this. But we will have it spinning in a moment. First, you're going to be over here on your positive X side, and you just go across. What you're trying to do with your A hand is just isolate this line. You're trying to keep this line isolated. And instead of just doing a pendulum along that line, you're adding one extra dip, and then a pendulum, and then a dip, and then a pendulum. So first you just sweep across. Then once you're here, you're going to pop up. You're going to do a negative Y spin about your hand, and you're going to end that. So you're going to start to drag towards in the positive direction with your A hand, and that yo-yo is going to hit a point at its negative Z extreme, so the vertex in its Z travel. You're going to have it isolate right there, and you're going to try to isolate that point. So it's going to hit that vertex, it's going to stop there, and then you're going to try to get it to literally just hold in space and then travel off into the positive X direction again. So you sweep across in the negative X direction, pull up positive Y, positive X. So that's I'm describing the motion of the yo-yo. It's going to go negative X, positive Y, positive X, across in the negative X direction, negative Y, positive X. And so at its extremes, it's really hitting 3 points, which is the negative X direction. It's going to be pointing directly that point at one point in its motion. It's going to hit there. Then as soon as it hits there, it's going to change directions and try to hit the very, very minimum point, which is that negative Z, and then positive X. Negative X, negative Z, positive X, sweep. negative X, negative Z, positive X, sweep, negative X, negative Z, positive X, sweep. And you can just keep repeating this to yourself, and you're going to just get into this flow of this motion. With your A hand, you're going to be popping up and across, and pop up and across. And all of this is just kind of different mantras that you can get and different focuses that you can pay attention to, because there's a lot happening. And because you're isolating this line with this hand, you're popping the yo-yo with this hand, you're also trying to focus on hitting those points with the yo-yo. And there's different places that you can place your focus as you practice this. And none of them are more important than the others. They're all equally important. So spend some time focusing on all those different things as you drill this. And in time, you're going to start to be able to develop a flow with this, and it's going to start to look really cool. See how this starts to resemble something that you could actually do. This could almost be, I mean, if around the world counts as a yo-yo trick, why not this, right? So now, you might be wondering, why am I teaching you this? This is the flat pack version of a triquetra. And I got this concept from Drex. But imagine you went to IKEA and you see a chair and it's all assembled, or even better, a desk, and the desk is all assembled and you're like, oh, perfect. I'll just go pick that up, put it in my car and drive it home. That's not how they sell it to you. They sell it to you in this flat pack box, and then you get to assemble it when you get home. This right here is the flat pack version of a triquetra, because all you have to do, and this is magic right here, you're gonna love this, all you have to do to turn this into a triquetra is, instead of isolating a line with your A hand, you, boop, there we go. And that's a triquetra. You're just creating a triangle with it. So you can see that's the point where I hit down, that's the sweep, that's the down, that's the sweep. And now, instead of negative X, negative Z, positive X, you are negative Z. So you're just hitting those at different points. And you're going to be hitting now not positive X and negative X, but kind of this point, the high, imagine you start at the origin, you go 45 degrees to right there. That's the point that you're aiming for, but extended with the yo-yo. So right there, right there, right there. I'm probably out of frame, but imagine that the string is at 45 degrees to there, so you're 45 degrees up. That is where you're aiming for, instead of that positive X and that negative X point that you were aiming for before. So you are up there, down there, up there, down there. Shoot. Boop, boop, boop. Point, point, point. Pedal, pedal, pedal. And now there's more that you can focus on, which is doing those pops with your hand, isolating that triangle with your hand, as well as hitting your 3 points and making sure that those all look clean. And if you can do that, then, well, you're doing a triquetra. Now you'll notice that my hand is tracing a triangle that is pointed upside down. The point of this triangle hits that negative Z as its vertex. But what if I wanted a positive Z? What if I wanted to hit there, and 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 there? Well, in order to do that, you'll also notice that now we're back to hitting actually a positive X, negative X. But if you want to do that, then you are going to you're going to do this differently, which is let me focus on it for 1 second. So yes, as you cross from positive X to negative X, you're going to do a pop up. This is a negative Y spin. You're going to isolate the point, but instead of isolating down there, you're going to isolate the point up there. So isolate, isolate, and you can just practice that in isolation. That wasn't meant as a pun, but you can practice this move on its own in isolation, which is an isolation. So you isolate, 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 and then you drag across. So now we're not isolating, we are just moving the yo-yo from the negative X side to the positive X side like that, while doing a negative Y spin. So We isolate as we cross, we pull across. Isolate as we cross, pull across. Isolate as we cross, pull across. Isolate as we cross, pull across. Isolate, pull. Isolate, pull. My hand is isolating along this center line. Let me just focus on doing it, and you can look at the line that it's creating. See how my hand is just going this way, and the yo-yo is creating those. So now, this is, again, the flat pack version. To create the triquetra, we're going to hit that top point, go to the negative X side, pop up, go to the positive X side, pop up, there, there, there. And so now we hit up there, we sweep across, we hit up there, we sweep across, we isolate, we sweep, we isolate, we sweep. And once again, you can start to focus on the yo-yo hitting its, I was actually wrong again. Down here, it is that now the 45 degrees is pointed that way, that you're trying to hit. At one point, it's going to hit that, and that's going to be the most it extends is right there and up. And then once again down here, the farthest point to your left it's going to hit is, you want to imagine a 45 degree angle drawn like that. That is where it's going to hit at one point in its travel. 45, 45, up, 45, 45, up, 45, 45, up. So that's one thing you can focus on. Another thing you can focus on is creating that triangle, which now you'll notice the point is in the positive Z direction. Up there, up there. So that's something you can focus on, as well as creating those pops with your hand. And you'll notice this one you're fighting gravity. In this one, gravity's on your side because the yo-yo is just falling. But in this other one, now you're fighting gravity. We're pushing up, we're pushing up, and we're pushing up, and we're pushing up. So this second one's going to feel a little bit harder at first, but in time, it's going to become just as easy as the other one, and you're going to start to master them. So that is a triquetra, a 3-petal anti-spin flower. And the opposite of a anti-spin flower is, oh, before I even start that, no, this actually all goes together. Let's integrate the spin of the yo-yo in two. So we have a negative Y throw. So now we're going to, let's do that first one, the easier one where gravity's on our side. And let's just do that for the rest of the video. You can always practice this one on your own and the same theories apply. But just for the sake of newbies, let's focus on this one. So you'll notice that as I do this, all of the spin is always in the negative Y direction. All of the hand spin is in that negative Y direction. And the shoulder spin, well, let's check it. That is in the positive Y direction. And that has to be true. That has to be true for it to be an anti-spin. That is the definition of an anti-spin, is that the hand spin and the shoulder spin are opposite. As long as that's true, you have an anti-spin flower. We can do a 4-petal anti-spin flower like this, and it's an anti-spin because the hand is spinning opposite of the shoulder spin. And we can add another point, and we can just keep adding points until we're basically tracing a circle, and now this is still all anti-spin. But that will be stable because the hub spin and the hand spin are still matched. So that is a very, very important concept. The law of matched spins only applies to the hub and hand spin. Remember that. It's important. Let me get rid of my string torsion here. All right, so the opposite of an anti-spin is an in-spin. So this is a 3-petal in-spin flower, which kind of looks round and bulbous. And in order to tell that you're doing that, well, the product of your shoulder spin and your hand spin has to be positive. And now you have an in-spin. So here is my in-spin flower again. My shoulder, so you can see my hand is, yep, it's spinning negative Y. That's good because I thought I was going to mess up there. But my hand is spinning negative Y direction and about my shoulder. And the hand spin is also in the negative Y direction, which means it's in spin. Now this time we have an anti-spin because it's a negative or a positive Y shoulder spin with a negative Y hand spin. The product of a negative and a positive is a negative. That means it's an anti-spin. So that is the basics of in-spins, anti-spins, triquetras, 3-pedal, 4-pedal and more pedals we'll get to eventually. But that'll be in a later video, and I might even do some online classes about that. So keep in touch if you want to support that. I want to teach you a few variations before I leave you, just a few applications where you can do this, including that black hop, that triquetra black hop. I haven't thought of a good name for it yet, but if you come up with one, message me and maybe that'll be the name for it. But how that works is you start from a triquetra. Oh, let me do it. I'm actually going to do the one where the peak is at the positive Z because that's the one I'm most used to. So practice that one and then come back to this as the advanced section of the video. So we're doing our triquetra, and then right here, we're going to interrupt the triquetra with our B hand. And now we're going to just continue the triquetra. So where you interrupt it is as soon as, because that's the furthest to the left that it goes, is right there. As soon as it hits the negative X direction right there, you're going to interrupt as if you're doing a trapeze. I'm also going to pretend that I didn't notice. I'm going to pretend that I was correct, that this is the furthest to the left that it goes. Obviously, it goes all the way to the end. So I don't know. Use what I was saying to learn the trick in as much help as it can be. This is a small technical detail that I'm just calling myself out for, but that is really the furthest out that it goes in the negative X direction when you're doing a triquetra, is right there. It has to be, because you can't stretch any more than that. It's not that negative 45. Anyway, you, God, no, I was right originally, but for a different reason. I'm going to stop talking about this and even thinking about this, but text me if you want me to explain why. Anyway, we're here, and we're going to actually extend further out in the X direction so that we do hit that furthest out point on the negative X direction as if we're going to hit a trapeze, but we miss the trapeze. So instead of hitting the trapeze, we're doing our triquetras, and then we pretend to do a trapeze, but we miss, and now we just continue that spin, but with our B hand. And then we are doing that, and then now on the same, so now you're going to pretend like you're going to do a 1.5. So you find the point where you would be about to hit a 1.5, which is right there. And then you almost do a 1.5, but you miss, and you continue. And then again, and you continue. And so now as you're doing this, let's see, what's changing? Is anything changing? Nothing is changing. Your hand is still rotating in the same direction, so your shoulder spin is the same. You can see that my non-throw hand was going that way, and in this case, my non-throw hand is going that way. So that's always a positive, yeah, and it would have to be because the hand spin is remaining the same. Good. Everything works. See, the system works. It's crazy how the system works. If you don't understand what I'm saying, rewatch it 10 times or just talk to me, because I'm not very good at teaching this yet. I still need to do classes on this and really get down how to teach this. I'm teaching this as a preliminary thing, almost as a prototype of future tutorials to come. So please, please, please give me feedback on this. And this is my first time teaching the variations. The rest of this video still applies. Anyway, so you pretend that you're going to hit a trapeze and you keep going in your trapeze. Then you pretend you're going to hit a 1.5 and you keep going in your 1.5. You pretend that you're going to hit a double or nothing and you keep going your double or nothing. Same with a 2.5 and a 3.5, and then you can land, and then you can do a black hops from there. I think I got my strings crossed, which made it so it was really hard, but there, black, black, black hops. Yay! Now we can do a 2.0 version just because I'm sure I can actually hit that. We'll see. Yeah, I hit it perfectly, first time. So that's that black hops variation. Obviously, if you're doing it, you want to actually hit the black hops. Now, the next thing is a transition from around the world. Very simple, also known as an extension in the poi world. You're doing your around the world, and now, how can you transition from this to a triquetra? And back. And triquetra, and back. So how can you do that? Well, you're going to be doing your around the worlds. Then, as soon as it hits the negative Z point, so as soon as it's straight down, you're going to thrust outwards and force the yo-yo into the furthest negative X point that it can get, right there. You're going to try to hit that point, and then, once it's there, you're going to pull across. So it hits there, you're going to pull across, and now from there, you've got the momentum you need to get into a triquetra. So you're in your around the world. As soon as it hits this point, you're going to pull across and now transition into your triquetra. And then from here, really at any point that the yo-yo is, because like you don't want to do it here. Well, I guess really at any point, you just kind of stop. And now you go back to your around the worlds. And then you can go to your triquetras and back to your around the worlds. It's just wherever, because you're all around the world is a circle. So it's just wherever you are, because you're always going in that same circle, you can just pull back in. But one good place might be, as soon as it's at that peak, you can pull down. So you can go from here to drop back down. So it's almost like the yo-yo isolates a line for a second and then continues around. So we can go to our triquetras. We can go up, down, circles. Triquetras, up, down, around the worlds. So that's one idea for that. Now, there is a million things that you can do with triquetras, and I'm not going to be able to hit all of them in this video. This is just meant as an introduction to get you started on your path to flow arts mixed with yo-yoing, and I hope that I've done a good job explaining all this stuff to you, and I'm so excited to be able to offer this to you for free, and I hope that you'll really, really learn this and refer back to your notes and rewatch this and share this with your friends. Please share the link to sign up to my mailing list to get this with your friends rather than the video itself. I would appreciate that a lot because, you know, I'm gifting this to you, and that gift is in return for your email so that I can send you emails and keep you up to date about Illink stuff as I continue to make things like this, and I'll be able to update you and your friends on future projects that I create for you, and free stuff that I can give away along with those projects as they come out. So yeah, I'm going to quickly plug my podcast, which is Kill Your Yo-Yo, available on Spotify. I'm going to quickly plug my Instagram, which is ILINX_TOYS on Instagram. That's also my TikTok, which is dead currently, but maybe I'll start posting soon. And another thing is I am always open to talk about this stuff. If you ever have any questions, just message me on Instagram and I will respond very, very quickly. I love talking to yo-yoers. And if you are a big name in yo-yoing and you want to appear on my podcast, also message me because, well, that's how I get guests on my podcast. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope that you really get to learn this stuff and apply it to your yo-yoing, because it's just such a big, huge world. Oh, you can start to understand why I get so excited about this. It's such a huge world of stuff and possibilities that you can do with this. And I can't wait to see what you do with it. So please tag me if you ever make some stuff out of this, because this is just the beginning. Thank you so much. And once again, a shout out to Drex for his excellent videos on which this was based. Thank you all for watching one more time. Later.